Well, thank you for, first I would like to thank you for inviting me. Thank you for InLoco, for the team in InLoco, and for Dubai Culture for providing the space to actually exchange ideas. It's really wonderful to be in this new, apparently it's not new to me, art and design library, so I think the context is really inspiring. I wanted to talk, I will do what everybody does is kind of talk about myself 5 seconds, and then we go on with the real story. So my name is Huda Smitshuijzen, AbiFares, and I'm not looking, I'm going to try and time myself as well. My talk, first I want to talk about why I started the Khatt Foundation. I'm trained as a graphic designer. I was born in Beirut. I studied in the US, and then I moved to the Netherlands. And then after years of being away, I was invited to teach at the American University in Beirut. And this is where it kind of clicked to me, the importance of actually creating, an education and kind of being involved or looking and researching about graphic design from the region, which I did not study, and having grown up in Beirut doesn't make you automatically an expert. So after years of struggling with, how do you create a space for research, a platform for research, a collaborative platform that is not connected to one institution, because institutions come with their own programs and needs and restrictions. And so the Khatt Foundation was founded while I was teaching here in Dubai, at the American University in Dubai. So after years I came and I started teaching here. And I was teaching graphic design, and I started the foundation, and at the time there was no way to kind of create an easy way of creating a non-profit organization in the UAE. And it was very easy to do it in Holland. And as a Dutch national and a person who's already, continues to live there while living in Dubai, sort of living between two places, it was easy to found it in Dubai in 2004. The first thing we did is actually, in 2006, we did a big conference here in Dubai on design. It was called Kitabat. Kitabat in Arabic means writings, and it was about bringing together calligraphers, graphic designers, and type designers, people that were working with technology and developing typefaces for the Arabic script, which was at the time also, again, first ever conference done with this, bringing cross-discipline in a way, but disciplines that are connected to each other. So for me, the foundation really is been founded on this idea of bringing people together, either from different disciplines and or from different cultures, different practices, to kind of expand the dialogue and to kind of bring the level of contemporary typography at the time needed that help. I mean, now it's really kind of moved on, which is really nice to see. So anyway, in 2010, we've been doing all these research projects, and so we decided, I always struggled to find someone to publish the books, to document this into books and to publish it, because the market is small. The market remains small, regrettably. But at the time, it was really impossible, and so we decided that maybe it's just as easy to just start your own publishing house, and it's a kind of extension to the foundation, and then it grew to be an independent publishing house. So this is in a nutshell me. So I'll go through these slides very fast. This is a kind of like collage from the snapshot from the foundation's platform, online platform. The foundation is a center for Arabic typography, but it's not a physical center. It's actually a virtual center. And this is some of the publications we do for the publishing house. We focus on research-based publications, specifically on design and typography from the region. And often our books are bilingual, so we also explore how do you design a publication that can be read from different directions, how does the two texts interact, what are the topics that interest us. Some of these projects I commissioned, some of them are in the sense like we ask an author to write a research about a specific thing, so it's commissioned kind of publishing. Some of it is my personal research. Some of it is an author comes and says, do you think my book is something you would like to publish? And there it's always difficult to pick something that works for the series of the books that we make. In 2014, we started a series called the Arabic Design Library series, and the series is basically short monographs about pioneer designers from different countries in the Arab world, sort of a way to create a history of design that doesn't exist, and to have these works documented and kept for future generations. So the process of working on it, we set up with like a few names that we knew, and you could count them on one hand, actually. And we thought, okay, it was going to be a really small series. But what happened was very interesting, because once you publish something, people come up to you and say, well, did you think of this person? Did you think of that person? So the process became a kind of like self-generative research, where you start to learn about people and you start to dig into their archives and you start to look for their archives and try to really just salvage things that probably would have been thrown away and destroyed, because, of course, graphic design, printed matter is something that is not valuable by itself as an object, and sometimes the sketches or the processes or the drawings of the artists are not kept because they're not really artworks per se, they're just a sketch of a design, whereas if you document it, then it becomes something that people can learn from, and you have a very nice way of understanding the work in a critical way by looking behind the scenes. So this is a little bit roughly what we do. We also do workshops, exhibitions, and collaborations with other institutions. But today I wanted to focus on more like this idea of public space and the importance of the Arabic script to the culture, to the Arab cultures, the various Arab cultures, but also its importance in giving identity to a city, to a place that we go to. So, for example, the minute you walk into a city and you see Arabic script, you know you are either in an Arab neighborhood or you are in an Arab country. It's automatically, it's like the symbol of where it gives you a sense of where you are. But the Arabic script is particular. I mean, of course, I'm biased. I am Lebanese originally. I speak Arabic. And I also am a graphic designer, typographer. So this is something I'm fascinated by, and I feel like I always learn from. But it also has a really deep importance that is rooted in the culture. It is not just a writing system that you use to write things. It's also by itself an art form. It's spiritual. It's got a lot of mythology around it. It's connected to poetry. It's connected to thought. It's connected to abstract art. So it's really unique in the way we perceive the script. And that kind of can work in both ways. It can be also a burden, like how far can you get away with changing things or making experiments with it, or the minute you go out too far, you might be seen as destroying something. So there's always this balance of working with the script in a respectful way, but also not being limited by it and being able to play with it. I mean, typography in general in the public space gives a kind of a city an identity. Like I said, you come into a city, you sense that you are in a kind of popular neighborhood, chic neighborhood, in this culture, that culture. So it gives a sense of space. And when you use it in an artistic way, you can also create landmarks. You can create, you can help people understand where they are in the city. And so it kind of has a structural function. You can bring it also closer to people. So often you see signs that there's typography around us all the time, wherever you go, everything, your phone, your house, your street, everywhere you see, there's always type and text. But when it's used in an artistic way, it gives a different sense, it gives a different connection to the city. The way it is not just a text, it's also a material thing. What kind of material is used, what kind of scale, how it relates to the body, how do you move around it? It's not just a flat thing, it's also three-dimensional. So there's all sorts of complex things. It's a complex medium that you see, you read, but it also influences you in its materiality, in its formal design, and its message. So all these things makes it a very complex and very rich medium to play with and to work with when you are thinking of, as an artist or as a designer, creating things for public space. How far do you go? In history, we have, and I'm sure the next speaker will be better at talking about it, we have a long history of wonderful inscriptions that are, like old inscriptions that are graffiti, but we have contemporary graffiti that are more ephemeral because their inscriptions were engraved graffiti. So anyway, I'll go through a couple of projects and focus on one of the oldest one that we did that was the most ambitious one talking about this topic. So this project was done in 2019, and it was about mapping the ancient Arabian scripts from the region. And these scripts, they are in some ways the ancestors of the Arabic script, directly and indirectly, but also the ancestors of most written scripts in the world. And they just came from this region. This is not a real map, this is a kind of conceptual map. So what was nice about the project was looking at all these different scripts. Some of them are no longer used. Some of them were used for the Arabic script or for languages we don't use anymore, extinct languages. And looking at their aesthetics, we did research about their history as much as we could find information. Some have more information than others. And then we end up designing, very simple fonts that we gave to artists and other designers, like fashion designers, jewelry designers, etc. And they use these scripts to create their own stories, because it's writing, so you can write whatever you want. So the exhibition was called Nomadic Traces, and it was in Abu Dhabi. At the time, it was called Warehouse 421. Then the exhibition we did a book that was very nice, extensive book about it, and it was also exhibited in Saudi Arabia in 2021. Also, I'm looking at lettering in the environment is something that we take for granted, but we published in 2000, I don't know the dates now anymore, this book that was a research by a young Egyptian student, graphic design student, who wanted to kind of synthesize the visual culture. So she started from the city, actually, from the physical space, and made an analysis of all the different visual expressions, the use of colors, the use of text, the use of how the text is used on signs, in books. And she mapped it and made the whole study that is kind of like a dictionary of, if you want to be an authentic Egyptian graphic designer, maybe you should learn this, or at least know about it. And that was a very beautiful project we worked with her on. A lot of the research projects that we do are self-initiated, and I personally take credit for initiating them, because sometimes it's random things you go into. Tell me, raise your hand when I talk too much. Okay. So random things, I go into a city for the first time and I discover something and it triggers an idea. And so this is an example of a project that I was invited to Morocco, in Marrakesh, to give a talk in the art school. And then when I was walking through the city and through the old souk, which is other than being fascinating as a place, I discovered a new script I had never seen, which is the Tifinagh script that was starting to be put on signs everywhere in the city. So the signs in the city had 3 languages, the Amazigh, Arabic, and French, and each had its own script, which is, again, very unique. So we're used to, in the Arab world, having everything in Arabic and English, or Arabic and French, but there was another language. And what was fascinating is that the script itself was, the way that the signs were made, they were visually completely not connected. So the scripts have very different history. The Tifinagh is more like as ancient as Phoenician, so it's very rudimentary in the sense that it's very geometrical, almost like symbols. The Arabic is the other extreme, completely, especially the Maghribi scripts that is used, very, very ornamental, very fluid, connected, complex. And the Latin script kind of falls in between. And so I thought, oh, that would be a nice idea to actually make a project out of that. So we did the research. We put together a team of three teams of mixed designers. So we had a Spanish designer and an Arab or Moroccan designer. And we did the research over a whole period of a year, visiting different places. So through the research, we discovered that, for example, the Maghribi script that we were interested in actually was very much used in the Andalus, in southern Spain, when that was a kind of Arab, Moroccan, I don't know if I can say Moroccan, but kind of Arab Amazigh cultural hub in the 13th century. And so it was interesting to go back to that route. And while we were doing this research, we started to discover that also in that area, in the Spanish context, in the visual culture of certain cities like Granada and Valencia and Cordoba, you could see also in the Latin script, the way they drew the script, that had the Moroccan flavor, or it had a kind of Arabic flavor. It was eccentric, it was bold, it was very, very playful. Not specifically the way you see the script normally in the rest of Western Europe. So anyway, I don't want to talk too long about it, but this was the basis of the research, and we did a lot of travels across and worked throughout the whole time and developed 3 different font families that are extremely different. The middle one was very much bringing these 3 scripts together in a kind of functional way. The one on the elixir one was kind of taking this idea of, building in Arabic, because of the way you write from right to left, the horizontal lines tend to be thicker than the vertical ones. In Latin, it's the opposite. So it's this dialogue between 2 scripts. And the last one, Kunduz, was inspired by a famous Sufi calligrapher, Al-Qandusi. It was like, you see his calligraphy everywhere in Morocco. And his work is like crazy and bold and completely uncharacteristic, very personal. And so they were inspired from that calligraphy to create the other typefaces and, the other scripts. So I go on. So this idea of looking at the city as a source to inspire you is for type design is very wealthy, because it's very hard to come up with new. With type design, most of the time when you create fonts, you create them for very practical, commercial, not commercial, but very practical purposes. So at some point, they tend to be like all sans serifs, and then if you're an expert, you can tell the differences. But when you create for public space, you don't have to worry about whether they're functional, because what you want is actually what you see in all the inscriptions. You want to have like a work of art that every time you look at it, you can look at it every day and you don't get tired. So reading is a problem. Like, you want to read, but you don't want to read easily. You want to every time discover a new thing. It makes it interesting, makes it lively. So this project was started in 2009 after I had just left Dubai. I left Dubai in 2008, and I was like, still my heart was a bit here, if I say that. And I was very much, I left Dubai in the middle of when it was just like growing, building cities. So cities were like constantly in my head. And I thought it would be nice to think of a way to make a city through typography, through a lettering project in public space, something that is unique and also close to a person. And I think that poetry is very, very close to our hearts as human beings, but especially people from, this region, the Arab and like the Swana region. And so the idea was to create a project where we bring people to collaborate together, be inspired by the city, and come up with new typefaces and applications that are for public space and very poetic. So I'm going to take you through this project. It was called Matchmaking because it was to design Latin and Arabic together. It's an old project, but it remains very lively. If you ever want to read about it, there's a video on it. So what we did is also in this project, it was in teams, 5 teams of architects, product designers, graphic designers, and type designers. And we traveled, we did this kind of marrying Amsterdam and Dubai. And for me, they kept saying, why do we have to go to Dubai? I mean, Dubai is not a really, truly Arab country because it's so mixed. And I said, but that's because of that, it's really a truly Arab country. We have to go there, you have to see it. And so we had a few trips in Amsterdam. We brought everybody to Amsterdam, and then we came, okay, 5 minutes is good. I'm close to the end. And then from there, we went we came to Dubai. We were offered, I think, during, I can't remember, Bastakia art fair or something. We had a whole house, an old house. We could actually exhibit some of the work, the research in progress. We had presentations, we had discussions with people, which I think is really very unique to be able to do that while you're researching and developing ideas. And we spent a week in Dubai, and we spent a week in Amsterdam, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll show you quickly what the projects were. So one project took this idea of taking, what we do in Amsterdam is you always, also here you kind of dredge, you take the soil, and you make islands with it, or you make more land. In Amsterdam, you do the opposite. You open it so that you have canals, you have things. So this was the idea also of like, in Dubai, we take the sand and we put it in the sea, and in Netherlands, we take the sand to get water into and they're both kind of, so it was looking at similarities between cities and approaches to materiality. So they started with this idea of sand and building from the physical thing, they designed the typefaces. So they made the experiment in 3 dimensions. Normally you sketch by hand, and they sketch with material. This was another one where it's more about, the fact that Arabic is all connected, so they created a script that is all connected also in Latin. So in fact, you can write Arabic and then write Latin, and then, so it's all like integrated. And it's open to being used in any material you want, and this was an example. Another one was inspired by inscriptions, really, and so they walked into the calligraphy museum in Sharjah, and they saw these old manuscript of Abbasid script that is this like very bold, heavy Kufi. And then they looked at lettering in Amsterdam that was done by architects for buildings in the 1920s and 30s. And there were some kind of similarities in monumentality, in boldness. And so they worked on this marriage between the two and came up with a typeface that could be and big, and also for augmented reality. At the time, that was exciting, new stuff, augmented reality. And another group thought of creating a script that can only be done as 3 dimensions, so you cannot write it. You can only 3D print it and have it as an object, a script that can only be an object. It cannot exist in typing. So they made this idea of, that the letter forms are just one strip that can be bent and turned and, to create words, to create letters, and that can be only 3D printed. And then this group worked on this idea of like modularities. So all the letter forms are the same size. They're almost like screens or tiles. And you could build them to create 3-dimensional shadows. They can be cut into different materials. They can be protruded into 4-dimensional thing. And this is an example of proposal for maybe a public park. It says in the shade. So like you can play in the shade of the sculpture. This is some other examples. And then I wanted to end with somebody else's work, but just to go back to this idea of what typography can be. And nowadays, we have lots of examples of calligraphers and artists and designers that really use the script to make three-dimensional spaces that you go into. Or they can be virtual performances. Or they can be, painted and like taking, almost refurbishing older parts of the city. Or they can be poetry, literally poetry in public space, where the poetry is something you can read but not read, and these are examples from Amsterdam. And then I end with this, as I think it was a nice way to end the conversation, by saying, we're just at the beginning. There's so much more we can do in public space, and so much more we can do with calligraphy and contemporary art, and bringing design and art together. Thank you.